Hello everyone. Hope you all are doing good. Welcome to the early societies from the beginning of time. The topics that we'll discuss today would be modes of communication, language and art, early encounters with hunter-gatherers in Africa, hunter-gatherer societies from the present to the past. The specific objectives and expectations after you complete this video lesson would be you would be able to summarize several views on language development. You would analyze the importance of ethnographic data and evaluate the development of farming and pastoralism as a way of life. Now, the biggest question in our mind is simply about the modes of communication, how language developed, how art developed. So, most importantly, the development of language is associated with different views. There had been different views, and those views could be categorized into these three. The first one is hominid language involve gesture or hand movements. So initially there were hand movements, the gestures. So like we use gestures, similarly those gestures eventually converted into language with a span of time. Second view regarding language development is that spoken language was preceded by vocal but non-verbal communication such as singing and humming, right? Like making a sound, ooh sound or any particular sound initially, and thereafter eventually language or the spoken language developed. So it was from non-verbal to the verbal communication. And the other viewpoint is that human speech probably began with calls like the ones observed among primates. So like the primates used to give calls by making sound, and thereafter probably human speech developed, right? Now let's understand, when did spoken language emerge? It has been suggested that the brain of Homo habilis had certain features which would have made it possible for them to speak. With the structure of the brain, there was the structure which enabled the speech formation in the Homo habilis. Thus, language may have developed as early as 2 MYA. So, in the previous unit, we have already discussed about them, and so 2 million years ago, 2 MYA, Homo habilis were there, and language probably has developed by, consider as 2 million years ago. The evolution of the vocal tract through which we speak. The vocal tract was equally important. This occurred around 200,000 years ago. So, around 200,000 years ago, this vocal tract developed. It is more specifically associated with modern humans, like we do have. A third suggestion is that language developed around the same time as art. So they considered, the third suggestion is that when the art developed, language also developed. Okay, so we consider it around 40,000 to 35,000 years ago. Another one, the development of spoken language has been seen as closely connected with art. So it has a great connection with art. So with art, spoken language developed, since both are media for communication, right? If there is an art, so that is also a means of communication. When ideas transmit, we call it as communication. So both the art as well as language are media for communication, right? Now let's talk about the early encounters with hunter-gatherers in Africa. We all understand, we have discussed hunter-gatherers in Africa. So hunter-gatherers, those who used to hunt and gather food, the early humans. So the early encounters happened with hunter-gatherers as well in Africa. And the evidence we can see here an account. So the following is an account by a member of an African pastoral group about its initial contact in 1870 with the Kung San, a hunter-gatherer society living in the Kalahari Desert. So what we are doing, the historians, while studying the prehistoric era, so we consider today's society or the evidences of the nomadic society and connect it with the previous prehistoric period, and accordingly put forward conclusions. So we can see here it's about African pastoral group about its initial contact in 1870 with the Kung San, which was a hunter-gatherer society living in the Kalahari Desert. When we first came into this area, all we saw were strange footprints in the sand. So in the Kalahari Desert, footprints which were quite unusual in the sand. We wondered what kind of people these were. They were very afraid of us and would hide whenever we came around. We found their villages, but they were always empty because as soon as they saw strangers coming, they would scatter and hide in the bush. We can easily rule over them. So we just ruled them. There was no killing or fighting. So you can understand the thought process, you could relate the thought process as well. So it's about the people in the Kalahari deserts, and those tribes were quite afraid. They were fearful, and whenever somebody used to come, they used to hide themselves in the bushes, and hence the others considered that it was really easy for them to rule over them. And there was no killing, no fighting, and they started ruling over them. Now we need to understand some important terms that will come again and again. The first one is ethnography, and the second one is anthropology. So ethnography is the study of contemporary ethnic groups. It includes an examination of their modes of livelihood, technology, gender roles, rituals, political institutions, and social customs. So, you understand the meaning of ethnic groups? So, that ethnic groups means division on the basis of shared culture. So, it's the study of contemporary ethnic groups. And in this, what they do, ethnographers, what they do, these ethnographers do examination of the modes of livelihood, how they live, what technology do they have, what is the gender role in their life, the rituals that they practice, and the political institutions and social customs that they practice. Now, the other term is anthropology. Anthropology is a discipline that studies human culture and evolutionary aspects of human biology. So you can easily understand here. So it studies about the whole anatomy of the body and the whole biology and the sculptures or whatever evidences they get, they study, they date it. So that is all about the biological structure. Now let's talk about hunter-gatherer societies from the present to the past. So again, as I said in the previous slide, it's all about the comparison done by the ethnographers from today's ethnic groups and of the past. As our knowledge of present-day hunter-gatherers increased through studies by anthropologists, a question that began to be posed was whether the information about living hunters and gatherers could be used to understand past societies. So, of course, as we talked about the comparison, but the question is it relevant? Would it be good to compare today's hunter-gatherer societies any which ways with something that has happened 2 million years ago? So, currently there are two opposing views on this issue. On one side are scholars who have directly applied specific data from present day hunter gatherer societies to interpret the archaeological remains of the past. So you can understand. So at one end, the archaeologist or archaeological remains, and on the other hand, the data, the ethnographical data. So by interpreting, by analyzing both the data, they were they are able to make conclusions. For example, some archaeologists have suggested that the hominid sites dated to 2 million years ago along the margins of Lake Turkana could have been dry season camps of early humans because such a practice has been observed among Hadza and the Kungsan. So in other locations like Hadza and Kungsan also it has been found. So hominid sites, so during the dry season they used to move there towards Lake Turkana. So such examples shows resemblance of the present society, present hunter-gatherer society or contemporary hunter, not if not present, contemporary hunter-gatherer societies, and then we consider that okay, there is not a problem in studying in this way. However, on the other side are scholars who feel that ethnographic data cannot be used for understanding past societies as the two are totally different. For instance, present-day hunter-gatherer societies pursue several other economic activities, along with hunting and forest produce or working as paid labor in the fields of neighboring farmers. Moreover, these societies are totally marginalized in all senses, geographically, politically, and socially. The conditions in which they live are very different from those of early humans. So, we can clearly see the mindset of these scholars, the thinking, the thought process of these scholars. They believe no, ethnographic data cannot be used for understanding past. Because if we talk about present day hunter gatherers, so they are involved in other economic activities as well, apart from hunting and gathering. They are working in nearby fields of the farmers as a paid laborer, and they are the marginalized sections of the society. politically, geographically, and socially. And hence, we cannot use the ethnographic data. That's what they believe. Now, there is another problem associated with the use of ethnographic data because another problem is there is tremendous variation amongst living hunter gatherer societies. There are conflicting data on many issues, such as the relative importance of hunting and gathering, about group sizes, or the movements from place to place. So these conflicting data could not be used. That's what is felt. Also, there is consensus regarding the division of labor in food procurement. For the food procurement, division of labor was there, but and for this particular viewpoint, there is a little consensus among the different scholars, the different historians and ethnographers, because in this everybody believed that they used to procure food. Although today, generally, women gather and men hunt. There are societies where both women and men hunt and gather and make tools. So these points, or the reverse role of gender, or the gender roles, creates conflict among the scholars regarding the ethnographic data. In any case, the important role of women in contributing to the food supply in such societies cannot be denied. However, the role of women undoubtedly was supported by everyone. It is perhaps this factor that ensures a relatively equal role for both women and men in present day hunter gatherer societies. Although there are variations, while this may be the case today, it is difficult to make any such inference for the past. So there are several things about equality of men and women in present day hunter gatherer societies, and there are variations as well. We cannot have any inference for the past on the basis of these. So other viewpoints are there because of this, right? So as we have completed the video lesson, the assignments are: discuss several views on language development. We already discussed the flow chart. You need to write the answer and follow the writing guidelines. Write a short note on hunter-gatherer societies. Many scholars feel that ethnographic data cannot be used for understanding past societies as the two are totally different. Justify this statement. Thank you and have a great day.